welcome to the Thursday Morning Fundamentals. My name is Kire Franklin. For those of you who this is your first time, pretty much what we do here is we talk about basic fundamentals of art and its relation to tattooing, and pretty much just have tons of fun. You have the opportunity to come on and join with me and ask questions and talk and hang out and learn a bunch of stuff. Usually for the first half hour to 45 minutes, I just go through some slides. We learn some new things and new terms and how it relates to the outside world. And then we kind of just talk together as a group if you want to come on. And in order to come on, you do have to have the Reinventing the Tattoo app. It's a free app you can find on Google Play or Apple Store. Pretty much you just watch the event from there, and I post the Zoom link right in the comments section whenever I'm ready to have everybody join in, and that way you can come draw. You can ask questions via if you're streaming from Facebook or YouTube, so that way you can ask questions through there. Just in case if you don't have the opportunity to come on with me, that's perfectly fine. With that being said, let me just make sure that everybody's hearing me, and we will go from there, okay? So let me just get set up here. I'm very, very excited for today's topic. I have been studying today's topic for a long time, since the beginning of my apprenticeship, which was in 2017. So I've been wanting to talk about this for ever. So I'll be so excited to get down with you guys on this topic today, which is going to be chroma. And it's going to all relate to the color theory subject that we've been going off of. I have all my past episodes right on the Reinventing the Tattoo app, so you can go through there. All right, I see everybody on, so let's get started today. I hope to have a little bit of music playing in the background just so it's not so quiet. Sorry about that. That was really weird. My internet just like went out for a second. Once again, been really weird lately, so super apologize for that. So let's, I guess, continue and pretend that didn't happen just now. Okay, so back to it. What do colors all have in common? They have gray. This was a big parameter for me. I said to myself, well, how does that really make sense, right? How do colors have gray? And that's kind of what I talked about last week, where colors are valued, and that's where it was really see that when we do this. And I've been doing that a whole bunch of times throughout these past couple of weeks. Just really demonstrating our value. Value is saturation of whatever hue you have. That's why I got you really, really warmed up to the idea of saturation and value you have. Playing chroma, which is the ground of the color, and what I mean by that, so if I took out my color, what I'm seeing here is this outer hue, right? Hue changer. But what the important part is, and what a lot of people miss, is the middle ground. Okay, and the middle ground is pretty much the range that is okay, be it through chroma, and this will all make sense in the end. I promise. Okay, but what you're trying to understand now, today, is what you're trying to focus on is that we're learning about this middle part. Last week we learned about the outer, which is our hue wheel. Now we're learning about the inner part, which will all together make it one big whole color wheel. Okay? So let's do this. Let's pause our tunes here. And let's look at this monstrosity. Okay? And I want you to take a second to look at that. And I want you to notice, what are you noticing? You're noticing how loud it is, how much it's screaming in your face, how there's so much going on at once that your eyes can't quite focus on one area. It's almost overbearing. okay? And this is a common problem that happens within art and in what people make decisions with, because the viewer is only noticing the bright colors. So as an artist, we take that viewer perspective and think, okay, all they're seeing and all I'm seeing is bright colors. So that's what I'm going to put down is bright colors and nothing else. And that is a very, very, very wrong statement. Okay. And that's what we do not want. So let's take a look at this one. Okay. Are we noticing how much quieter it is? Much more relaxed, much more down to earth with it. Everything kind of makes sense. It's got a path. It's pleasing. I'd like to look at this on the wall. Okay. So now we get into our actual definitions. Okay. Okay, chroma. Canceling out a color with gray or its complementary. Saturation. Intensity of a color. Okay. So I separated these for a reason, but I also have them together for a reason. Separating them to let you know the difference, and there is a difference, but I have them together because they are very much, very, 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 very similar, but they have very different meanings and places when it comes to color theory. Saturation, intensity of a color, we learned that last time, okay? And I showed you that you can desaturate and saturate a color right on the bottom here. So like if we went back to this, desaturated color, so we took away the saturation, what's happening to it? It's all becoming a value, okay? So the less saturation it has, the more hue or color you see out of it. And if we bring it back up, right, they just get brighter and brighter and brighter and more intense. Intensity, that's the key word here, okay? Chroma, canceling out a color with gray or its complementary. Now, this is the definition for it, but for right now, make sure I'm on the right layer. We're going to ignore this section because this section will make sense to us in the future. In the future, I mean in a couple more slides. So right now, let's focus on putting a period right here. Canceling out a color with gray. Well, doesn't that sound like what saturation is doing? Nay, nay. Okay. It is not. Both involve the use and distribution of gray. That is correct. And that is the parameter of it. So, hold on one second, let me take a sip of my coffee. It's getting a little dry in here. So here's the important factor of it. Of course, now my tune's not going to work, of course. Here's an example. And here are your terms placed appropriately. Okay. So let's continue with it. Saturated. Hone in on that. Saturated. There's an ED at the end. Saturated. Okay. In tattooing, and I'm sure if you're an apprentice, I'm sure you've been hearing it a whole bunch of times. Saturated is, or when it is said, means that you're bringing the tattoo to its most intense amount of color or most filled in color where no more can be packed. That's the limit. Saturation and saturated is almost like the cap of a limit of where you can bring that color or pigment or whatever the heck you're doing. Okay. So think of it this way. Chroma is muting out where saturation is bringing it up. So what is the difference in similarity here? I'll make it a little simpler for you. The act of or movement of your colors. And not so much just one hue, right? It's the whole spectrum. Okay, it's this whole middle ground. Okay, saturation being all the way over here, as you can see on the upper right hand side, and then desaturate or using the use of chroma to go across and make that transition from one color or another. Desaturating is completely taking out gray, is graying it out. But if you can see here, yeah, some of these are very, like, you use gray, but it doesn't mean that they're not super saturated and that they're not colored. That makes sense. Okay. So let's pull out this palette here. And this is the most common palette. You know, the only thing I missed here was purple. But this is the ray of the rainbow. Okay. And this is what we see all like kindergarteners do. This is the most popular palette. But this is saturation here. This is as saturated as it gets. And where do all these colors come from? Well, you can see right on the top right-hand corner, where are all these colors coming from? Where is the movement happening? It's happening on our hue wheel, not the middle ground. And where is it traveling? It's traveling on that outer edge, right? So what we're going to be learning today as well is the relationships that colors have with each other. So let's pull up this color wheel again. And let's take this a little bit slower, just in case you are new to this and this is your first time really understanding what chroma is and saturation. And let's take it one step at a time here. Okay. We have one color. Doesn't matter what the color is. Let's make sure we're at the right layer. Okay, we have one color here. We're starting all the way at the end. And we want to get all the way over to this blue on the other side. Well, we can't go this way. That's a super long journey to get there. What can we do? We can just go right across the street. We can just go like this. Let me pick a different color so it's a little bit more prevalent. Go like this. Isn't that an easier trip than going all the way around? Okay, how do you do that? You apply your chroma or adding gray. Adding gray. Okay. That way it makes your transition to the other color easier. That's the whole point with that. It's the movement of your hue over to the other side. It's a simpler trip, and that's what we're going to call it. Simple trip. Okay. It's like deciding whether you're going to take the long journey or just go right across the street. Okay. That's what this is. Your colors are neighbors, they're friends, they're family, and they like to see each other, but in the right ways and in the fast ways. Okay. So that's what chroma is, and that's how you establish that is by using chroma. Okay. And I'm going to keep saying the word chroma, 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 so it gets into your head as to what that is. Okay. So let's pull up 3 palettes here. And I'm going to tell you, have you guys take a second to look at them. Okay. And then we'll take the journey of each palette together. Okay. And I'll explain different ways as to you can take that journey just by simply dissecting the palette. Just make sure everybody says hello. Good morning, everybody. That is saying good morning. Hope everybody is learning a whole bunch. And I hope it's still live streaming. It is. Okay, good. Because that internet thing is weird. That happened. I do apologize for that. All right, take a sip of my coffee. You guys have dissected this enough. All right, let's take this one step at a time. So let's get rid of those. Let's focus on this one here. So pretty simple, right? We're going from orange to green. Okay. So let's, of course I drew all over that one. Let's take it, right? We're going from orange, like this orange, to, I don't know, like this green. Okay. So what's the easiest trip? I don't want to like go all the way out here and then come this way. I'm just going to go like this, right? So let's see what kind of journey is being made with this, shall we? Now I'm going to be color selecting on the right-hand side, or on the left-hand side, but I want you to focus on the right-hand side. Okay. I want you to focus on the middle ground. Okay. Don't focus on the upper or the hue wheel, because you already know what that journey is. It's orange to green. So you know which direction that's going to be in. What I want you to focus on is what's happening in the middle. Okay. Let's begin. Okay. Do you see what happened? Let's do it again. Whoops, my bad. Do it one more time, just because I clicked another color by accident. Okay. Do we see what happened? There was a line of action almost, right? One last time, let's try it. Follow the direction it goes in. Okay. It was almost like it took a journey straight across down and then back up again. Straight down and back up. That's one way you can do that, right? Just by desaturating or use of chroma, adding gray to tone it down. So it brings it to that middle ground, which would be, make sure I'm on the right layer, which would be this here, right? Because what would, if I turned this to just a black and gray palette right now, this would be that Terminator line. If you remember from the very, very beginning of my classes, the Terminator line is that cusp between light and dark, correct? So what is that? That is the Terminator. That's the brink point transition color between the two, but it still needs to have a journey to get to that point, right? Let's take a look at the second one. Okay, let's take away the first one so you can only concentrate on that one. Okay, much cooler palette happening here, okay? And a little bit of a longer journey that it's taking because there's way more colors put on this palette here. But if we see, right? So we're making the journey from like a hot pink over here to like a purple here. So it's a very short journey, yet there's still a lot of colors on it. Do I take the journey like this? Do I take the journey like this? Do I take a journey like this? There's many ways to take the journey, just as long as you pass through this middle ground before coming this way. That way it's a transition into it. It's not just a jump from one to the other out of bounds. Okay. So let's look at this journey. I can get my thing to work here. Where am I? There we go. All right. So once again, I'm going to be color selecting on the left-hand side. I want you to be focusing on the right-hand side, and we will get this going. Okay, so focus on the right-hand side. Okay, did we kind of see what happened here? Let's try it again. Okay, so why was this journey much longer? Does anybody have an answer for me? Well, let's do it one more time. I always pause to give somebody a second if they want to answer, just in case if you're like, why is there like dead silence going on? This time I'm going a little bit faster. Okay. So what I wanted you to notice was that it hung out in the grays for a little bit longer. Okay. So this middle ground here, this act of chroma, is what made the journey longer. Okay, but your journey doesn't have to be that long. I'm just letting you know that it can be and still make sense. Okay, it's going from one end of saturation to the use of chroma coming all the way down to almost absolute black and then back again. Okay, and I'm showing you this way of doing it in the beginning. Okay, as the next couple segments that we go on, I'll start teaching you like color mixing, and we can make that transition much faster. Okay, and you can understand what that transition color needs to be, the middle ground between both of them, and establish your values correctly. Okay, right now, our first module, which we'll call it the module or the path that your colors are going to be taking, is going to be from one end of the spectrum to the other. Okay, straight line. I want everybody to practice straight line today. Okay, and then I'll start teaching you guys how to go like bouncing around in module 2s or module 3s, which is sticking within your realm. Okay, but today we're only focusing on our journey from one end of the spectrum to the other, clean. Okay, so let's take a look at the third one, which is a super long journey here, super long journey. But what I want to point out, right, is that I am using chroma still in this journey. I'm still adding gray to my palette, but I want to point out that these colors are pretty intense for what they are, okay? Which is what I want to point out of the difference between saturation and chroma, okay? Saturation, the intensity of your hue or your color, where chroma is the adding of gray, okay? It's still intense, it's just adding gray, or it's complementary, but we'll get to that in a second. So this journey is straight across the board, okay? As far as hue wheel goes. So let's bring up this more simpler hue wheel here. We're going straight across the board, everybody. We're going from, make sure I'm on the right, going from one end to the other, clean slate right across, okay? This is the most common transition, which is what I pretty much just talked about, going straight across the board. And what I myself started out as far as picking my palette, which is just picking from complementary colors, which we went over as well. Complementary colors being the opposing side of your color wheel, to be exact, okay? Most common one being red and green. Of course, I'm not in the right layer. Red and green, yellow, orange. Like it just goes like this, right? Those are colors that coincide with each other no matter what. Okay, so if you have red in there, if you're like, oh man, I really need to use another color, I don't know what it is, immediately put green down because that's just going to make your eyes feel better. Why that is, I did explain it in my last episode, but I will go over it again. The reason being is when your eye, right, when the sunlight hits your eyes and then it reflects off, right, it's reflecting off of whatever object you're seeing, and that's why you're seeing colors the way that you do. Okay, so when you have, let's say you're looking at a red light while you're driving, and it's a horrible example because you shouldn't do this, but let's just say and pretend that we all know it's red, top one's red means stop, bottom one's green means go. So red, right, say you're sitting on the stoplight, it's red, whatever, and you're staring at that red light, nothing else, just that red light. You're honing in your eyes on it, okay, to the point where it almost hurts. And then you close your eyes. What you should be seeing now is a green light within your eyes, not because that's how you are seeing it as if your eyes were closed, but that is how your mind is perceiving that object when your eyes are closed. It's like almost a memory, an immediate memory of burning of the retina, and it's going to be that opposing color, okay? It's a crazy concept, very difficult to understand. I'm not assuming everybody's going to understand it, but that's just the way it is. That's why complementary colors are the way they are. It's all brought down to science. You see? So let's look back on this third palette, this third journey that this color is taking, okay? And let's do this again. This will be a little bit longer of a journey, so it might take a little bit second, but just pay attention and hear me out, okay? Do we see what's happening? Let's try it again. Okay, do we kind of see what happened? Okay, what I'm pointing out in this one is not only how long of a journey it's taken, but where it starts to, let me start from up here. So it starts to dip up. So it starts off obviously saturated, because that's what I wanted to prove, right? Saturated. Then in every single one of these modules, it starts to dip down to the same area, right? So we see it start to dip down as we use Chroma, okay? Until almost reaching the level of black. Then what happens? It starts to come up, okay? And these palettes, although are different in a way, they all are doing the same exact journey and arriving to the same exact place as far as using chroma and saturation to our benefit, okay? They are both taking the same journey as this one here, okay? And realistically, right? So now we have this journey. Let's just take fun to this. right? Realistically, make sure I'm on the right layer. I can put in another color here that is on the opposite side of the spectrum, and it still makes sense within this palette. It does. Let's try, let's say, use green. Still makes sense. Let's try and use, see if purple works. You see what's happening? Okay. Proving not only does hue choice in palette not really matter, what you're focusing on is the journey that one color is taking to the other and the value in which those colors are at when they're taking that journey. Okay. Because what does it always get brought back to? Value. Okay. That's what I've been saying since day one. Okay. What is color? It's value. Color is the sometimes why of fundamentals. Okay. So let's bring this up. And this whole time we've been talking about the relationships that colors have with each other. Okay. Sorry, it's getting dry again. Good morning, Faith. She says good morning on YouTube. Good morning, everybody. So this is a much shorter palette, a much shorter journey, and a much more simplified way for your colors to have a relationship. Okay. But now let's talk about if we were color mixing with an actual medium, and that medium being, you know, like acrylics. Okay. Let's say we started off with this orange on the right hand side, and we started gradually mixing in that super bright blue, or super saturated blue, I should say. It's going to take a journey, of course, I'm on the wrong layer, very similar to the one that I have here. Okay. So it's going to start getting like yuckier and yuckier, and then it's going to hit this middle ground, and then it's going to start to transition into a blue. But what I want you to notice, a few things. Let's look at this journey that it's taking. Do you see what happened? Much shorter of a journey, so you got to catch it quick. One more time. Where is this color? Not on the hue wheel. Where is it facing? Or pretty much where is its front doorstep at? Right in front of that blue. Okay. And guess what color that is in our palette that we have right now? That's our Terminator line. That's the middle ground. There it is. And not only will it do this right now in front of me, but I chose these because this is pretty much the transition that it's going to make with acrylics. This is what's going to happen. And in tattooing, it's the same way. Okay. And I'm not talking about like the application of, you know, saturating colors. I'm just talking about what they're going to do when you mix them. Okay. And tattoo pigments are very, very finicky because a lot of companies put or hide an undertone to that color. Well, that's something we'll get on in the future. Point being that when you take one color, and this is very, very common in your basic fundamentals of tattooing, where you take one color, be it this orange, and I don't know, you're like saturating something, right? You start at one end, right? And you start saturating, and then you slowly just start dipping into this blue, right? You run out of pigment, you dip into the blue just for a sec, you now get something like this, and you saturate, And then you run out and you dip into the blue just a little bit and maybe a little bit back into that orange. And then you saturate, 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 and it's going to hit this middle brown, and you saturate, 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 and I need some like help to get that brown, but it'll pretty much skip that, go to here, saturate, 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 go again, saturate, 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 until you get a saturated, nicely blended piece, okay? And it's the same thing in painting as well. Painting, you'll immediately get this dark umbery brown for sure. But how would you get that color, right? If there's no black. It's a dark color, right? It looks very, 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 very dark on this palette. Nay, nay. Not saying nay, nay, it's not dark, it is. But it's not the only dark color within our palette. What is its almost exact value? It's that blue. But how can that be? That blue is so, so bright. How is it such a dark value? Well, that's the magic with colors, okay? That is where a lot of people have a tough time understanding colors. They'll put these bright colors down, and I've heard it over and over and over again, putting these bright colors down, and then they'll come to me and say, why does it look so dark? Well, that's why. You're blinded by what the viewer is seeing, which is bright colors and saturated tones, and not looking at what you should be focusing on as an artist, which is value, which is this here. So yeah, it's going to get to this point because this is so dark already. Okay? I'm almost done, I promise. It's a lot of information, I know. I'll let you ponder on that for a second. It's a lot. I know it is. It took me a long time before I really understood relationships of colors, but they do. They have relationships. They have their own lines, and they don't care what color you want it to be. It's not going to be until you make it that way. And that's just the sign of it. Last little bit here that is super important. Any primary mixed with its complementary makes brown. Okay, I'm going to say that one more time. Any primary mixed with its complementary makes brown. Now let's go back. Let's go back. Chroma, canceling out a color with gray or its complementary. Now, why do you think now that you know all this information, right? Why do you think it says complementary here? Well, I just explained it. It's a faster journey across the board. Instead of adding gray, which is a mistake I made for quite some time, I would just, instead of color mixing, like when I would color mix, I would, let's just say I'm using this blue. And this isn't in tattooing, this is before tattooing. This is when I was really wanting to understand chroma. So I'd have this blue, right? And then I literally would just, let's hear the values here. I would just add gray. But it wasn't, which works. Not saying it doesn't work. But what are you seeing here? Okay. Bleh. That's what I see. Bleh. Okay. It's not, it wasn't what I was looking for as far as color mixing or getting colors. And I learned that using black or gray should be a hearsay thing. Okay. Especially use of black. But we'll get to that in the future. We're focusing on canceling out a color with gray as a complementary. So the complementary here, we went back to this, brown is our middle ground, right? I just said that before. It's our Terminator line. Why do you think that is? Because that's what those two colors make together. So why not use it? It would be silly of me to not use the exact middle ground of both of these colors if that's the journey I'm trying to make anyway. That's just silly, okay? And also, it's what happens out in nature, okay? Leaves turn brown from their transition between green to red, okay? When, this could be a very hearsay topic here because not everybody lives in somewhere where there's seasons. But when you have, and I've explained this in my last class too, when you have like a nighttime sky out, right? And I guess this would work in the summertime too, but it kind of is more prevalent in the winter. Anyway, you have a night sky out, it's nice and pretty and blue, okay? And you're walking down your street, it's cold as shit, and there's a very orange lamppost shining on the entire landscape or the entire composition that's in front of you. What is also the color that is prevalent within this, within that palette? It would be that grossy burnt sienna brown. Why is that? Because those two colors merging together, that color needs to exist, okay? And they have different forms of brown, okay? So, and as soon as I start naming these colors, you'll completely understand why these colors now exist, okay? Red and green make what is called normally burnt sienna. Sorry, burnt umber, not burnt sienna. Burnt umber, okay? The one on the bottom, yellow and purple, make burnt sienna, okay? That, in my opinion, is one of my favorite browns to use. It's very, very well-rounded, so that's just my opinion. And then the orange and blue make like a grossy, I don't even know if there is a paint color for it. Comment below if there is, but it's just like a burnt yellow ochre, pretty much what I would call it. But the more popular ones are the burnt umber and the burnt sienna. You've seen bottles of these. You've seen artists use these all the time. And why is that? A lot of painters say that they'll do their entire composition as an underpainting in burnt umber before doing anything on top of that. Why do you think that is? Well, now you know, because that's an immediate transition color to whatever they're doing, okay? That's why there's an underpainting. So that way, when they have an underpainting of an already middle ground color, which is brown, then they can transition to whatever color they want to, and it be with ease, be much better, okay? It's much easier to do it that way than to go in with like black and gray and just like do an underpainting that way, because you are, this will open, you are so far over here on the spectrum, and instead of just being right in the middle, it's easier to be in the middle and cross the street on either side than to be all the way on one side of the street and have to make that transition anyway, okay? Remember, chroma is not saturation. Chroma is not desaturating. It is the movement, an act of movement across one board to the other, okay? And the whole point of me teaching you color theory is that so you can understand and read the hue wheel and color wheel as a whole with absolute ease, okay? So that way, whenever in the future, when you start doing color tattoos that might be a little more up, extreme, you having trouble transitioning one color to another because some pigments have this weird undertone, you are able to read that color wheel, no problem, understand where you need to go with that color, okay? Lastly, I made a little spear using the same exact palette that we had here, okay? Same palette, nothing different, okay? Now you can see it right in front of your face as far as transitioning, because I've had it out as a palette this whole time talking without even showing it to you as an example. And here's your example, okay? you have this orange that's over in the corner here, and then it makes that transition till it hits that brown terminator line into the cools. Okay, and once again, I don't want to get too in-depth in temperature just yet, because these past 2 episodes have just been color theory, the color wheel and the hue wheel, nothing else. But one temperature lesson. Okay, this is the palette I used. Once again, do we see this color here and this color here? Okay, now this color hits this terminator line right here, right? And then it starts to transition over, and then the hue completely changes. But this color and this color, as you can tell, in the middle ground, aren't far off from each other. And if you're wondering, right, or if you're not wondering, I can make it even prevalent to you. This color right now is being read as a cool. I don't know if that's just me, but it is. It's being read as a cool right now. Why? Because it's sitting next to these blues. So it's being read as it's cool. And not only that, but when you color select it, right? See how down into the cools it is? And this is the other fun thing about colors. Okay? So now it's down here. And what really changed going from here to here? What was the drastic change? Not the movement of the middle ground, it was the hue. The hue completely changed and went from that orange to the blue. And it works. Why? Because this color was sitting in the middle ground. So we can make that transition with these, no problem at all. Okay. Whereas if we went back to this madness, the transitions of colors are extreme. It's almost blinding to look at. Okay. So let's get this out of my face because holy shit. So when we go back to here, I can place that grayish yellow ochre color to the cools and it would still work. Okay. From here, and you should know this from last class, you can color correct with the iPad if you choose to do so. You can even do it with your phone. And I explained this in the last class as well. You can take a picture of whatever object you're doing in nice lighting, or, take it with the iPad here, and you go into your little magic wand thing. And you tone down all the saturation and just make it a value study. Okay. That's the whole point with it. And that's the very much whole point with this whole thing that I'm doing here, which leads into what I'd like everybody to do. And usually I pick like an object to redraw or something, but I think this would be a more fun project to do. What I want and what I would like, let me take a sip of coffee. Hold on. What I would like is everybody to practice spheres. We haven't done spheres since like the second episode, okay? But what I want is for you to first make a palette. Practice the transitions between one color to the other, okay? Make sheets of them, tons of them. You can look up online and see different palettes there and why that works. Color pick them and see what kind of journeys they're making, okay? Mimic the directions. map it out, okay? Then take your color palette that you choose and do a sphere study with it, okay? And then double check your values, but what I don't want you to focus on is what colors you are choosing. I want you to focus on value. This is still all about value, okay? Nothing else. So that is what I would like everybody to really hone in on so that you can really understand what's going on here, okay? And this would be about the time where I start letting people in and so they can come hang out and whatnot. So if you guys give me just a couple minutes, I can post that up. I'll do a sphere study while we're here. And if nobody joins by the time I'm done, we can just call it a day. That's okay. And I'd like everybody to really choose complementary palettes as well. It's a very easy beginning, okay? Just going straight across the board from warm to cool. Warms in front, colds in back. Warms always come forth, okay? So while I have this up, I'm going to post up the Zoom link, which always takes me longer than it should. So give me just a minute and I can let everybody on here. And we can do that. Also, it's Veterans Day, so shout out to any veterans out there. Thank you so much for your service. And I hope everybody is having a wonderful day. All right, so I'm about to post it. Once again, if this is your first time here, you're not too sure how to hop on with me, you just go to Reinventing the Tattoo app or community.reinventingthetattoo.com. Sign up for free, go right to the event section, hit watch show, and it's right there for you. And I just posted it up right now. So we got that down. So if you guys want to head on over, feel free. And we can get started. All right, so I just posted it up. Feel free to hop over. If not, that's totally cool too. I'm gonna pick a palette. Let's do this. So I have, I can go based off my color wheel here. What kind of journey do we want to go on today? Let's start. Of course, let's start with our teals. Let's be fun. Let's be very Kire today. And super, 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 super saturated. But let's make it like a much quicker journey like we did for this palette here. So I really, forgot to mention here, I really selected this palette as if I was selecting the positions in which they belong on the sphere, right? We have our, and if you don't know how to value select, go back to the very, very beginnings of my episode. I explained a whole bunch. So I have my lighter tone, I have my mid-tone, I have my darkest light, I have my Terminator, I have my lightest dark, I have my reflected light and ambient occlusion. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 transitional colors. Sorry, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 transitional colors and 2 saturated. Okay, so we're gonna do the same thing. Super saturated tone. What it's best to pick like which journey it's going to go on. So let's go straight across the board. We'll pick this warmer orange red. okay? Super saturated. All right, so it's going to take the journey right across here, okay? So let's try and keep it straight across just to really stay on topic here. So what I do and what I'm going to do here, so I have, let's start with these reds. So now that it's right across the board like this, I want this hue changer to go across, but it's up to me into which decision, like which way I want it to go, through the coolers or through the warmers into the cools. And my answer is to go through the warmers to the cools because it's already a warm orange or orangey red, okay? If, for example, let's say I had a palette going from this color to this color, okay, pretty close together. I'm not going to go from here all the way around the board to the other side. That's too long of a journey. That doesn't make sense, okay? I explained that a little bit in the beginning, okay? So it's the same thing. We're gonna go across the board going this direction. Yeah, it's that was almost the entire value study in just like a burnt sienna or burnt umber, depending on which temperature he was using. So, all right. So what I'm gonna do is, as I use Chroma, I'm also going to tug the hue over a little bit. And I will probably be adjusting these as I go, because it does have to kind of make like a jump. So I have, okay, so I have my, we're gonna pick a little bit lighter of a color, more on the orange side, because that's not going to be very bright as far as value-wise. And we can already start doing that. Okay, now they're pretty much the same, so let's tug it up even more. Okay, let's do that. Let's make sure our transitions out, and then what we can do is take this teal color, bring it to the darker level, just to be prevalent with our teachings here. All right, so it's going to slowly start to go over to that direction. So we're going to slowly tug it, desaturate, and use a chroma, and also tug the value down a little bit. Okay, that is our midtone. Then start to tug it a little bit more. Value down, desaturate, use a chroma. Our lightest, that's our darkest light. I always get that confused. Ooh, that's very important. Okay, now let's work from the other side. Green or teal, just darker value of it. Okay, same thing. Start tugging up this way. Desaturate a whole bunch. Just the value a little bit. So we got. Okay. Okay. Now we have our middle ground color. Let's fix this a little bit. So it's a little bit. Hey, man. All right. So question would be right in the middle of both of them. So it would be kind of like a yellowish green grossness coming out. And then we go right in the middle here. Something like this. Okay. See how that kind of happened? And then just to be clean. Oops. Why is that not erasing? There we go. Okay. All right, just to keep it nice and clean. All right, see, there's our, oh geez, there's our palette. I can't use my iPad today. There's our palette right there. Very Irishy palette, but it works, right? There's a clear transition. There's two saturated, 5 middle grounds. Okay. So let's pull out a sphere here. And start kicking it in. But before I do that, right, I've got to check my values. Right? Ain't that kind of cool? Even though, right, let's say this, these two midtones are quite similar. So what I can do is actually lighten up this one here, but I don't need to change the color of it. I don't need to change the hue. All I need to do is just change the value. Make it a little brighter, that's all. Quick fix. And then just make sure. Yep, much better. All right. So my thing that I always do is tell everybody to make a little light bulb. Tells you where your light source is coming from. So I'm already gonna make a dot there. And then what I'm gonna do is take the Terminator color and completely contour the shape. Okay, so now I know my separation between the two. It's very simple. Okay, and you can even expand that just a little bit. And then from here, it's just a simple back and forth motion with it. But what you could really do is come in here and literally just apply each tone. And I'm being a mess on purpose. See? Mess on purpose, but we'll do this a little bit cleaner. But this is the whole point of it. I'm selecting my palette via selecting where they belong. Paint by numbers, that's all it is. Okay, if you can get your mind into the zone right now of painting by numbers, then color theory is going to be like second language to you, truthfully. It is a magical wonder and it is very tricky, but once you really understand it, it's very forgiving. Let's do this a little bit cleaner. Okay. So let's back it up. Okay. So usually, and a good way to do this if you aren't like a great person, color pencil is the way to go. Honestly, I bought the whole Prismacolor set last year, and honestly, it's like it's so good. I love it. Color pencils are one of my favorite mediums. All right, so I'm just using a soft airbrush, kind of just like stumbling it in here. And this section is really for just beginners. I think everybody that's been doing fundamentals for a very long time, especially tattooers that have been tattooing for decades, can make a sphere. But I think if you are, a little more advanced, you can still challenge yourself by not focusing on the color, focusing on your value, selecting your values appropriately. And that can mean just skipping the whole pick your palette and just go in and pick random colors and throw them on the sphere and see if they work as far as value. Not so much does it make sense, because it makes sense if the value is correct. And yeah, I'm still kind of being a mess, but I'm kind of just establishing everything here. And I hope you're kind of noticing what's happening, especially when I apply this super saturated tone. It's definitely changing and blending with the other colors. That is a very bright orange. Oh shit. Next week, since now we are really getting comfy with the color wheel, next week I'm going to start teaching you guys how to explain colors without using the names that they were given. And if you're wondering what that means, I guess you'll have to find out next week. So I'm just going back and forth with my lights right now. Blend, blend, blend. It looks very, very soft right now, which is okay. I'm going to ask this question out to everybody. You can comment down below and see if this is very similar. When you're making something on Procreate, and it looks very soft like this, doesn't it kind of mess with your eyes? And your eyes kind of think it's out of focus, like you're blind, and it's like trying to stay in focus. It's kind of funny. Maybe that's just me. All right, so I kind of have my lights established here. I'll clean up the edges in a sec, but we got our front-facing ball. Okay, kind of looks like a gobstopper. Now we're going to start establishing our darks. So darkest light. And if this was color pencil, I would be going into the Terminator line like I am now. So don't mind me, I do go back and forth with the Terminator line and establishing that over and over again, just to get it, in there saturated. Reflected light, and that ambient occlusion. And you may be wondering, like, why are you using such a saturated tone as your ambient occlusion or darkest dark? And it's just to prove furthermore that a lot of saturated colors really are just dark, unless you're super high up on the spectrum as far as value goes, like here. But, over here, it's very dark, but still saturated. Make sense? But I just chose this teal darker value just to prove the point of value. So now I'm just blending that Terminator color back into my darks here, just to give it a little bit more form. Once again, this is just me explaining for those who don't make spheres often or haven't seen my sphere class. And now I'm going to start like really establishing harder edges. And yeah, I'm bringing that Terminator line right down. And don't mind me like turning the canvas a whole bunch. I tend to do that when I get into it. I'll try and keep it straight up and down. And we have our reflected light here. Ambient occlusion. And we can even come in with like a more softer approach to this. And it looks very weird. I know it does. The palette is weird. It doesn't look like it's something that it would belong in nature, but you know, bear with me. I'll show you what I mean. Just make sure you're remaining soft and soft and soft. Blend and build, blend and build, blend and build. It's not a race. Sorry, wrong. And okay. And let's see here. Let's add some of this to the edge here. And what's interesting to me is this color, this color, and this color are very similar. Okay. And they're literally straight above each other. They're just different hues. Once again, just proving the point that it doesn't matter the hue or color of it, as long as it's the correct value. Makes sense. Okay. Let me just take this Terminator edge here and come in and pretty much clean up the edge here. I'm not going to necessarily keep this edge. Okay. Oops. Oops, come on. Do you see what I see? Okay. This starting to make sense to y'all? Okay. Now what's left? Now we have to check our values. There we go. Holy crap, it's a sphere. Isn't this like, it's such an interesting I don't know. To me, it really is. We could even come in here, right? Just to darken this orange. Oh, and here is this. All right, just give it a little bit extra texture, you know? I'm hoping that this is like, now that I did this, I'm hoping that it makes a little bit more sense, okay? As to what I'm trying to establish and have you guys be aware of here. And I can even go in and like really start establishing stuff here and edges and the works. All right, so let's take away our palette now. Oops, don't delete it. Okay, see, taking away all the subjects that don't really matter. And all that we have left is our sphere. And I don't know about you guys, but it looks like what it's supposed to. It looks like a little marble, okay? And no matter what, it's going to make sense, all because our values are correct. So it's just one of those things. Just one of those things. Okay? So, all right. And sorry, once again, my internet's wacky. So we'll cut it soon. But furthermore, what I was trying to say, adding black is now the time to do so. So this is only in regards to painting, right? In tattooing, you still need to have a very wide range of field of black because that equals longevity, correct? Colors will get eaten away out of your skin no matter what, no matter how well you place them. So this is just for acrylics, okay? And even color pencils right before you get to that level of saturation that you can't mess with the paper anymore. Okay. Let's make black here. And even though this looks great the way that it is, in order to amp it up a little bit, we could add black, right? So, but I would only do so in finite areas. So let's double check our hue, our saturation here, if it'll let me. Okay, so our Terminator edge is our darkest dark, right? And that little dark teal, I honestly could have made it darker. So let's put black there instead and see what happens. Okay. We can even make it like almost like a green concentrate. Okay, so it's like something like this, right? Okay, so I'm gonna fluff it into my Terminator edge. Fluff it. And then what I'm gonna do is really hone in on the ambient occlusion here. Okay, to really give it that 3D effect. Okay. But understand, once you start applying that field of black, your colors and your value distribution is going to change a little bit. Because now your eyes are focusing on that darkest dark. So putting it in, and once again, this is for the medium of color pencil and or acrylics, okay? I do not put my darkest darks in until almost I'm done with the painting, okay? Or when it's just absolutely time to do so, okay? So that's what I would do if this was a painting, right? That's the only amount of black I would use in this whole thing. And even then, I would come in with that Terminator color again and buff it in there. Okay. Do something like that. Okay. Have that be the case right here. Gives it just an extra oomph, and it takes your composition just to the next level. And it widens your value range a little bit more too. Because right now with the palette that I have here, there's no absolute black and there's no absolute white. This is very much like mid-tone to like an 8 on the value scale, okay? 10 being the darkest. So this just extends it a little bit to now allowing, what was that dark I just used? All right, let's say that we took it and we tucked it over here. So now that we do that, what's going to happen? Now you added just another value to it, something else to take into account. But it has to have a relationship with all the rest of them too. You can't just like throw black in there, just throw black in there. It needs to be distributed in a nice, even way and have its own place and not disrespect anything else. Because that's a whole point that I'm trying to make with teaching as well, is that you cannot disrespect what naturally already occurs. Okay. So I just plowed all these colors into here. Why would I disrespect all these beautiful colors with a like huge field of black? And it's very common, and I've seen it a lot, where they'll have a nice composition, right? And they'll mix their colors with black. And all that does is make everything very like muddy and yucky and unflattering to the eye of the viewer. Okay. In my opinion, black should not be used in painting or other mediums besides tattooing until the very end. Okay. In tattooing, black is the very first thing you apply down. Okay. But at the same time, it has its own crevasses, if that makes sense. It has its own areas that it sits in, and you distribute it from there to make a nice pleasing image. Okay. But that's when you start to run into those issues of those realism artists and their tattoos not healing appropriately because the sun's going to eat your colors. So it's just being a lot smarter with your decisions of what you use. I think that's all I have for today. Is this nice little sphere that we did. I'd like everybody to do 4. I think 4 is a nice amount. You can do 6 every day. I don't care. This only took me, what, like a half hour to really bust through. So honestly, it's up to you what you'd like to do. But if you're really wanting to hone in on color theory and really focus on it 100%, this is the way to do it 100%. And last but not least, just hyper focusing on that little oomph of contrast and what it does to a piece. Okay. Let me stop screen sharing here. That was a lot. There's a whole bunch, but we really went through it. I had a lot of fun explaining stuff. I apologize once again for my internet. I'm hoping to get a new laptop with Black Friday, so hopefully I'll have a new setup coming in soon, and we'll have I'm trying to change up a lot of stuff that I'm doing. Just to talk about that for a second. I'm trying to get a new setup here and a new way of having my displays down. So if any teachers out there that teach online have like websites and stuff like that that you use to display your slides in a much nicer way, I would be all about hearing about it. Free is best and accessible to translate it to Zoom as well. So feel free to let me know. Other than that, thank you guys so much for listening in. The ones that did, the ones that are commenting right now. You guys are great for the support and everything like that. You can find me on Reinventing the Tattoo at Frankie Tattoos Things. I am on Instagram as well at Frankie Says Things. I am taking a small hiatus from social media. Besides posting about Ring every once in a while to kind of just get myself back in order. Wait till my internet comes back. There we go. And hopefully when I come back, I'll have a new setup. As far as come back to social media, I have a new setup, have new ways of doing things, fresh mind, open heart, inspiration. That's the whole goal with this. I think everybody should step away from social media for a few months out of a year. It really is helpful. So with that being said, thank you guys so much. Shout out to Reinventing the Tattoo for giving me this awesome opportunity to share my knowledge with you guys and teach and help you guys with your art. Shout out to the Horsemen. I miss you guys very much. I will talk to you guys soon. And I think that's it. If you have any comments, questions, or concerns, you can still check me out at Frankie Says Things on Instagram. I do have an email there that I will answer. And at Frankie Tattoos Things on Reinventing the Tattoo. If you have any suggestions as well, comments on my teaching, would love to hear it. Other than that, you guys are amazing, and I hope you guys have a wonderful day.